All right, so I want to start us off with a question.
Hmm.
And it seems incredibly simple on the surface,
Okay.
maybe even a little mundane, but if you actually sit with it for a second, it's kind of mind-bending.
Go on.
Who decided what you would have for breakfast this morning?
Huh. It sounds like a trick question.
No.
I mean, the immediate knee-jerk answer is, well, I did.
Of course.
Or, if you're like me and running late, the drive-through attendant did.
Right, that's how we experience it. You think, I chose the eggs, or I grabbed that specific brand of Greek yogurt, but when you pull back the curtain, that decision, it wasn't made in a vacuum.
No, it was the final step in a massive, totally invisible chain of events that, it literally spans the globe.
It's really a question of logistics, resource allocation, and just fundamentally how we organize ourselves.
Which is why we're looking at a source today called The Invisible Hand versus the Central Plan.
And before everyone tunes out thinking we're about to, read a dry Econ 101 textbook, let's be clear. This isn't about interest rates or stock tickers. This is about what they call the coordination problem.
That is the technical term, yes. But you can think of it as the ultimate logistical nightmare.
How so?
Well, we have limited resources, land, time, raw materials, you name it, and we have billions of people with essentially unlimited wants.
So the coordination problem is just, how do we decide who gets what? How do we distribute all that limited stuff without society collapsing into, total chaos?
Exactly. It's the story of how the world is organized or disorganized.
Yeah.
And what I love about this source is that it treats the economy as an information processing system.
Okay, an information system.
Yeah, and you have two main operating systems for this processor. You've got the market economy, which is decentralized.
And the planned economy, which is centralized.
Right. And we all know the basics here. Capitalism versus socialism, Adam Smith versus Marx. We don't need to rehash the definitions.
No, but what's so fascinating in this source material is the focus on the mechanics of it. How these systems actually move goods around. It starts with a character, Annie, standing in a grocery store.
Right, the dialogue between her and Sean. It's such a simple scene, but it captures something really profound. Annie's looking at a carton of almond milk, and she just has this moment of sudden realization.
She asks, how does it turn out that the store always has exactly the kind of milk I love?
Which is something we just take for granted. But think about the data required for that milk to be there. No government official sat down and calculated, okay, Annie in apartment 4B is going to need 3 liters of vanilla almond milk this week.
And yet, there it is.
And Sean, the other character, he explains this isn't luck. He calls it the magic of the market. But magic is doing a lot of heavy lifting there.
It's not magic. What he's really describing is a decentralized computation, a huge one.
And Sean immediately contrasts this with the alternative. He says in a planned system, a government official would have decided what Annie is allowed to have.
Based on some calculation of national needs.
Exactly. In a rigid, centrally planned model, think Soviet Union in the 70s, the diversity of choice is the first thing to go. The source gives a specific example. An official might decide that the population just needs milk with 2.5% fat.
Why that specifically?
Because it's efficient to produce, it meets a nutritional baseline. So that's what gets produced for everyone.
So what if I prefer skim or oat milk? Or I have a soy allergy?
The system, it doesn't really care. The plan has been set. The plan favors uniformity because uniformity is just easier to manage from the top down.
But the market economy flips that logic on its head. It relies on decentralization.
This is the hive mind concept. And he asks how the milk got there if there's no master planner. And the answer is, it wasn't one big brain making the decision. It was millions of private decisions all happening at once.
Think about that chain. The farmer deciding to milk the cows.
The packaging company predicting how many cartons to print. The trucking logistics manager optimizing a route.
The store manager analyzing last month's sales data to place an order. None of these people know Annie.
They don't know she exists. And they don't necessarily know each other either.
Right.
The farmer doesn't know the truck driver. They're just nodes in a network.
Which raises the huge question the source tackles. If there is no general giving orders, how do they all stay in sync? How does the farmer know to get more cows before the store runs out of milk?
And this brings us to the most powerful concept in the source material. Prices as signals.
I think this is where most people get tripped up. We see a price tag as a barrier. It's the amount of money I have to lose to get the thing I want. But you're saying it's actually a communication device.
It's a signal flare. It conveys a massive amount of condensed information. The source uses the latte example to map this out, and it's It's worth walking through the whole chain reaction.
Let's do it. So imagine a scenario where suddenly everyone in the city decides they want lattes. Maybe a celebrity is photographed with one or whatever. Demand just spikes overnight.
Okay, so lines are out the door at all the coffee shops. The baristas are panicked. They are burning through their milk supply way faster than they anticipated.
So the coffee shop owner places a frantic order for more milk. But every coffee shop is doing this at the same time. The wholesalers start running low.
And basic supply and demand kicks in.
The wholesalers raise the price.
Correct. Now here is where the signal travels. Picture a farmer 300 miles away. He doesn't know about the celebrity photo. He has no idea that lattes are trendy in the city.
He's just living his life.
Exactly. But he opens his ledger and sees that the price he can get for raw milk has gone up 20%.
That number, that price is the only information he needs.
It tells him one thing: produce more milk. It acts as a direct incentive. He thinks, if I buy another cow or invest in better feed, I can make more profit because milk is expensive right now.
So it coordinates his behavior without him even understanding the root cause. He's solving the shortage in the city.
Not out of charity, but out of self-interest. That is the invisible hand Adam Smith talked about. No one ordered the farmer to expand his herd. The price told him to.
And this is happening across the entire economy for millions of products all the time.
Constantly. If the price of copper goes up, miners dig deeper. If the price of timber falls, loggers might switch to a different industry. It's a self-correcting system.
There's another layer to this in the source that I found really compelling. It says money functions as votes.
Yes. This connects right back to Annie's realization in the store. She says, so my money is essentially a ballot.
Meaning, when she buys that specific brand of almond milk, she's casting a vote that says, I want this product to exist, keep making this.
But it's a ruthless democracy.
What happens if she stops buying it?
She votes it out of existence. If enough people stop voting for a product with their dollars, the company stops making it. It's not profitable anymore.
And the resources, the labor, the plastic, the shelf space, they get released.
And they flow away from the unwanted product and toward whatever people are voting for.
Yeah. That explains why my favorite obscure brand of chips always gets discontinued. I didn't have enough coalition partners voting with me.
Unfortunately, yes. But notice the result. Resources are constantly shifting to match what people want, all without a government mandate.
And the mechanism for all this is voluntary exchange. Sean points this out to Annie. He asks her to remember that in every single transaction, both sides technically win.
That's a bit counterintuitive for some.
Yeah.
We often think of commerce as zero-sum. You know, I lost $5, you gained $5.
But in value terms, it's positive sum. Annie values the coffee more than the $5 she has.
And the barista values the $5 more than the coffee he has. If that wasn't true.
They wouldn't trade.
Precisely. It creates order from what should be chaos. Two strangers, who might not even share a language, cooperate peacefully because the exchange benefits both of them.
Okay, so that's the invisible hand, a decentralized supercomputer of prices and voluntary votes. But we have to look at the contender. The source material shifts gears here to the central plan.
The static view. And this is where the tone of the source material gets, well, a bit more ominous.
Well, it's appealing on paper, isn't it? The idea that we can just design a better, more fair society. We look at the market and see waste or inequality, and we think, if smart people were in charge, we could optimize this whole thing.
That is the internal allure of the planned economy. The mechanism is straightforward. The state, a central authority, decides three things: what to produce, how to produce it, and for whom.
It promises stability. It promises to end what it calls wasteful competition.
But the source points out that this eliminates the very feedback loop we were just talking about. It eliminates the price signals.
It creates an information void.
Exactly. And to illustrate this, Sean challenges Annie with a thought experiment that, honestly, it gave me the creeps. He calls it the life schedule.
Yeah, this was vivid. Sean asks Annie to imagine that he has the absolute power to schedule her entire life for the next year.
And think about what that entails. He's not just planning her work meetings. He decides exactly what she will eat for breakfast on March 12th. He decides which specific pair of shoes she will wear on the second Tuesday of November.
Who she talks to, what hobbies she pursues, everything.
And Annie's reaction is immediate. She just says, "It sounds like prison."
Which is interesting because theoretically it's a perfectly optimized life. No decision fatigue, everything is taken care of for you. So why does it feel like a prison?
Because it removes agency, for one. But more importantly, and this is the economic point, it removes adaptability.
Right.
That's the key. Sean explains, in the plan, there is no place for "I changed my mind." A plan, by its very nature, is set in advance. It is static. But human life is dynamic. It's fluid.
So let's say on March 12th, Annie wakes up with a stomach ache. The plan says oatmeal, but she can't eat oatmeal. Or she twisted her ankle, so the planned high heels won't work.
If she changes her mind, the plan breaks. In a centrally planned economy, the system cannot adapt to those millions of daily shifts in reality. If the central planner decides the nation needs 10,000 pairs of combat boots,
But a heat wave hits and people actually need sandals.
well, the factory keeps churning out boots.
Hmm.
The planner is just too far removed from the ground truth.
And because there are no prices, there's no signal to tell the factory to stop.
Exactly. The price of boots doesn't drop, signaling an oversupply, because the government sets the price. So you end up with a warehouse full of boots and a population of barefoot citizens.
This is why planned economies are historically plagued by shortages or deficits.
The planner's trying to guess what millions of people need, but without the language of prices to guide them. It's not necessarily that the planner is evil or incompetent.
It's that the planner is blind. They are operating in an information void.
It is an arrogance of knowledge. It's the assumption that a single committee can know more than the collective intelligence of the entire population expressed through their daily choices.
So we have the invisible hand, which is messy but hyper-efficient at matching supply with demand. And we have the central plan, which is orderly but rigid and blind. But here's the reality check, and the source is very clear on this. We don't actually live in that binary world, do we?
No, and thank goodness for that. I mean, if you look around, pure, unadulterated capitalism where you can sell, I don't know, heroin in a kindergarten, that doesn't exist.
And pure planning where the government owns your toothbrush doesn't really exist anymore either.
We live in the mixed economy, the middle ground.
Right, but I felt the source material was highlighting a real tension here. It's not just let's hold hands and have a bit of both. It's about assigning specific roles.
A division of labor, really, between the state and the market. The source suggests looking at what each one is actually good at.
Okay, so the market's job?
Consumer goods, innovation, efficiency. The source uses the iPhone as the prime example.
Which is a classic case. You couldn't commission a government bureau to invent the iPhone.
You just couldn't. The risk-taking, the rapid prototyping, the marketing, the unbelievably intricate supply chain coordination for glass and chips. That requires the competitive pressure of the market.
The incentive of profit drove that.
Absolutely. But, and here's where the state comes in, the iPhone wouldn't work without the internet or GPS.
Both of which were originally government projects.
This is the state's job, infrastructure and public goods, things that are too expensive or risky for a private company to build from scratch. Or things where we just don't want a profit motive, like the court system.
Or roads. If we left roads entirely to the market, we'd probably have a toll booth every 50 feet.
And no roads leading to poor neighborhoods because they aren't profitable.
Yeah.
Exactly. The market maximizes efficiency, but it doesn't always maximize fairness or access. That's where the state steps in.
But there's a deeper role for the state that Annie and Sean discuss, the rules of the game.
Right. Annie asks, so we need the market for iPhones, but we need rules for things like protecting the ecology.
And Sean agrees. He uses a sports analogy that I think is perfect for this.
He says, the logic of exchange works best when there are basic rules of the game that protect the participants.
So the state is the referee.
Think about an NFL game. You need a referee to enforce the boundaries, to call fouls, to make sure nobody brings a baseball bat onto the field.
Without a referee, the game devolves into a brawl.
That's a market without regulation. You get fraud, pollution, exploitation. But, and this is the crucial nuance, the referee doesn't call the plays.
That's the distinction.
The referee doesn't decide which team wins. The ref doesn't tell the quarterback to throw a pass. If the referee started tackling players or deciding the score, the game would be ruined. That's central planning.
So the synthesis is, the market is the game, the dynamic struggle to innovate and serve. The state provides the stadium and the rule book.
And the political debate we see in the real world is mostly just an argument about the size of that rule book. Some want more penalties, some want fewer. But almost everyone agrees we need both the game and the referee.
It's a spectrum. And finding that sweet spot is the hard part. Too much refereeing, and the game slows down to a crawl. Innovation dies because of red tape.
And too little refereeing, the players get injured, the environment or the workers suffer. It's a constant calibration.
So to bring it all back to where we started, My breakfast table.
Back to the eggs and milk.
When I poured that milk this morning, I wasn't just consuming a beverage, I was participating in a global election. My dollars sent a signal.
That traveled through the wholesaler, to the trucker, all the way to a farmer you will never meet, and that signal kept the whole system moving.
It really changes how you look at a grocery store, doesn't it? It's not just a warehouse of food. It's a physical manifestation of a vast communication network that operates 204/7 without a central commander.
That's the big takeaway. We went from the milk anomaly and the invisible hand that coordinates millions of strangers
Through the terrifying rigidity of the life schedule.
and landed on the necessary messy balance of the mixed economy.
And I think the final thought for you, the listener, revolves around that communication network. The source ends with a metaphor about language.
It does. If the market is a language, a complex, evolving language of prices conveying value, and the state provides the grammar, the rules that structure the sentences, then we have to ask ourselves a question.
In our current economy, are we speaking clearly?
It's something to mull over.
Uh-huh.
Are the signals getting through? Or have we created so many rules, so much complex grammar, that we're actually drowning out the conversation?
Or on the flip side, is our grammar so poor that the language is just becoming gibberish?
That's the tension. We need both. But keeping them in balance is the challenge of our time.
A fascinating question to ask yourself the next time you see a price tag on a gallon of milk. It's not just a cost, it's a sentence in a global conversation.
Indeed. Look for the invisible hand. It's always there, stocking the shelves.
Thanks for joining us on this deep dive into the machinery of our world. We'll see you next time.
Goodbye, everyone.